Un fotógrafo acreditado en la Fórmula 1 desde hace varias temporadas, pero además se define como un apasionado del costado humano del deporte. Es un gustazo enorme poder charlar desde Australia con Kym Illman, quien se sumó para esta entrevista. Kym, thanks a lot for joining for the interview. What time is it there in Australia?
8 a.m.
Okay, okay. Here it's 9 p.m. Here in my city in Buenos Aires. Kim, first of all, thanks a lot for joining for this interview. It's a very uncommon period of the year because it's not common to have such a long interval between races by this time of the year in October.
Yeah, it's strange for me because this is the same length as the summer break, and we get two of them this year, and it has actually given me the opportunity to do something different. I'm taking my family to Manila on Monday, and I've never been to Manila, so it'll be interesting, I think.
Yeah, that's in Philippines. Have you been close to there before, apart from any Grand Prix near Philippines?
Oh, I've been to countries not far from there, but never to the Philippines. So I've done a bit of research, and it looks a tale of two ends, very rich and very poor.
And yeah, you have a big insight as in your previous experience in photography prior to get into Formula One. So you have a very original and very unique point of view every time you meet a new place.
Well, yeah, really revel in going to new places, and because I've got this YouTube channel which is going very well, it gives me something to do. I have a purpose now when I go rather than just travel and sit around a pool.
You've worked. I will read this because it's a long list. You've been a DJ, as I've read I've seen in some interviews. You've
Mhm.
worked in a bank. You've been an audio engineer, and always making up your way and getting into new terrains. Would you your career is very unique and it's very different from many of the current motorsport photographers we know.
Oh, it's completely different. I didn't get into this until 2017, and I wasn't sure how long I was going to do it. I look, the reason me getting excited about Formula One was I went to Abu Dhabi in 2016 for the last race. I paid the money and went with Red Bull. You got all the hospitality, you get access to the paddock. I was in the garage and I was listening to Daniel Ricciardo talk to his engineer with the headphones on. And at that moment, I thought, wow, this is really amazing. Maybe I should try and photograph this. So I applied after that race before Christmas to the FIA and said, look, I'd like to photograph your sport. Here's what I think I can do for you. And I sent them a copy of my wildlife photography book. And I don't know why, but they said yes. So they accredited me for pre-season testing. They then accredited me for the first race, the second race, and then I got a gig with Sutton's, which is a major agency. I think just because I was there and I was fortunate. And since then, I've done 7 seasons. It's my seventh seasons, yeah, seventh season.
And when you entered that first time in Abu Dhabi, what kind of expectations did you have? Were you simply just attending to a Grand Prix as a fan? Were you trying to have a different point of view of a Formula One Grand Prix? What was your relationship with Formula One by that point?
Well, I'd followed Daniel Ricciardo, obviously, because I'm from Perth. He's from Perth. He went to the same school as my kids. And I had an interest. I wasn't an avid fan, but I certainly would watch most races, and I would sometimes even listen to them on the radio as I was going out to dinner some Sunday nights. And then I thought, well, let's go to a race and let's do it well. Let's do some corporate hospitality and do it properly. And quite frankly, it was just a jolly. It was just good fun. I met some lovely people, but it's what ignited the passion.
And did you meet Daniel right there? You didn't meet him previously. What kind of impression did you have from him?
Well, when I say I met him, I waited out the front of the garage on the Thursday because there's a pit lane walk, and he came out near me, and I just said something briefly to him about Lancelin because the place I live here in Western Australia is on the coast, and Daniel would often come here on holiday with his mates, so he knew the town, and he might have known me too because of I've got a very successful audio production company here in Perth, and we did some unique sponsorship. And he would have known the messages on a hold hands behind the goals. Any Australian who follows footy will know that from 90s and 2000s. And then I did have one photo with him as part of the package, but no, he didn't know me really, apart from maybe knowing my background. But I had a lunch with his father. No, actually, that was after. After I came back, I contacted his father. And I said, look, can I take you out to lunch? And he said, yeah. He was a lovely fella. I still got on very famously with him. In fact, I'm catching up with him on Sunday. And he gave me a few pointers, but wasn't really much of help. I had to do pretty much all of the getting into the sport myself. But yeah, it helped to chat with both him and a couple of other people I spoke to that were photographers.
Yeah, that's something really interesting, Kim, because when you got into photography in Formula One, you had a different background as a photographer. I mean, as far as I know, most photographers start in the junior series or karting and make their way up, just like if they were driving cars instead of taking the photos of them. And you came from a different background in photography. What kind of different perspective you could bring into photography itself?
Pretty quickly, I learnt that the cars on track were good, but I'm not a great car photographer. I think I'm a better storyteller, certainly a much better marketer than any photographer going around. And so I thought, well, how do I use those two traits? So I focused on more the stories in the paddock, the people. I would spend more time photographing drivers arriving and leaving than anybody else, and hence I got the pretty good stories. And it wasn't until about I did all of 2017, every race, shooting for Suttons. Next year, I thought, I'll just do maybe some, half maybe. I won't apply to Suttons to work for them again because I don't want to muck them about not doing every race. But turns out I did all but two. The next year, I did all but one. But halfway through 2018, my eldest son has got onto me and said, look, you really need to be doing Instagram. And I hated Instagram. But I succumbed to it and I did it. Now I've got 580,000 followers, and it is a huge part of my weekend. And in fact, my life. I just spend all my time posting stuff to Instagram. And if you look at my page, Kym Illman, you will see that there's not a great deal of car photos because people just don't. Every time I put up a car photo, it can be a nice one. It might do okay. But if I put up a picture of a driver in tears or celebrating or Daniel leaving the paddock, that goes way better. So I realized pretty quickly you can't serve to people what you think they should see. You have to serve what they want. And I just do that. What works, I do more of, and what doesn't work, I do less of.
That's well. That was possibly the best advice you got in photography, and it was from your son. I mean, sometimes
Yeah.
When you meet other photographers and you got and all of them have some kind of camaraderie, perhaps the youngest one is giving advice, and this time it's completely different.
That's exactly right. And then he also pushed me a year later to do YouTube, and I did a video, and I said, "Look, here's my first one. I'm going to put that up." And he said, "You can't put that up. Why?" Well, that's terrible. Well, I spent 7 hours on that. You can't put it up. So I had to go and do it again with his advice. And since then, my videos have steadily improved. I look back at those initial ones. They were pretty basic. But as with anything, when I started my business, Messages on Hold, I did everything. And then as the business became more successful, I started to farm off the secretarial work and then the audio production work and then dispatch. And in the end, I do none of it now, but I did everything when I started. And that's what I think's made me successful in that business and also in this business, because I did everything at the start. And now I can find myself an editor and I can give that workload to them, and it frees me up to do more content.
That's really great because that increases your content flow all the time, and that boosts your social media and therefore your business too.
It's incredible. And I was very lucky that I found an editor that now I can fully trust. So I will send him just cold vision. He has access to my photo library. And when I say, Daniel Ricciardo came in wearing this, he will know almost always which photo I'm referring to and find it. And then, of course, when he sends me the edit, I go, right, well, there's 4 things that got to be fixed, and he fixes those. And very rarely do we go back for a second round of edits.
How many people do you have working for you in all your kind of content? I mean, your photography, your videos, and every point of your work in a weekend?
I have a full-time editor. Well, I say full-time, he's part-time. He works 25 hours a week, but some weeks he'll work 50 and others 0. My son works with me doing mostly F1 stuff. He does a little bit of stuff in the office, but he'll go to 14 races this year. And when he's not working here, he's working back in Australia remotely. And then I have access to my other staff in the office. I've got 40 staff that work on the other business, and I have access to them for small parts. But certainly there's really only three of us doing full time. Me doing the most, Jace probably doing second most, and then Jack doing third most.
Kym, do you feel, would you say that you are somebody that wanting to do it or not, you arrived to Formula One to change the game a bit in photography? Because I think it was, as far as I can perceive, it was simply a group of photographers, of extremely qualified photographers that took pictures of the cars on track and doing a marvelous work and an extremely amazing work to see. But you did something quite different. Did you shake up a bit things in the positive sense of the word?
I don't think many of them like doing what I love doing, and that's standing out there waiting for drivers. They see that as a bit of a grind. And quite frankly, it is. Sometimes you'll be out there for 5 hours waiting for 20 drivers to come in. But that's where I get most of my great content. Look, definitely, I've noticed a big difference since when I started in 2017 to now. There might have been 15, 10 photographers waiting for driver arrivals. Now there could be 40. So that's definitely changed. But I've still not seen anyone do what I do, and I understand why, because you need some people around you. It is very expensive, and most of the time, the photographers in the paddock have things they have to do, because they'll all be, well, most of them will have arrangements, they'll have contracts and clients, and they've got to be here at 10 o'clock and there at 11 o'clock and photograph these people having a drink in the back of the garage, whereas I don't tend to have a great deal of commitments like that. So I can afford to, like the other night, Daniel Ricciardo leaving, I spent 3 hours and 46 minutes waiting for him to go. Every other photographer in the paddock had gone back to their hotel at 1:46 a.m., which I'm not complaining about because I got the whole thing to myself, and those pictures have turned out to be quite valuable. But look, I understand why it's not something most photographers would want to do. It's not particularly arty, and the very best photographers, the guys that I work with alongside me at Getty, because I contribute to Getty Images, they are stunning photographers of action on track and portrait photography, but they tend to love the on-track stuff, which I don't mind, but I'd far rather be doing people and stories in the paddock.
That's something I would like to ask you about, Kym. Your connection with the drivers, because you get very genuine reactions and very genuine expressions and faces and moods from all the drivers. Do you build up a connection or a sort of a relationship with all of them? I mean, I'm sure the first one or the deepest one was Daniel, but you get to know pretty much the drivers in a very introspective sense of knowing them.
Well, look, I've done, I think, 130 odd races, 4 days per race. So that's 520 days. I've seen a lot of these drivers every day that I've been at the track. And that they obviously get to know you. They see you a lot. And we talk, some more than others. Like, you wouldn't spend any time talking to Lewis because he's always the focus. And you don't want to be talking to Lewis when he's walking in, there's 40 photographers behind you. They'll just smash you, get out of the way. But others, yeah, you chat with, they'll see your photos, because typically if I take a photo of Lewis, I can have that on my Instagram page in 3 minutes, and that's pretty quick. And he can get back to his hospitality suite, and if he's looking through Instagram, he can see that picture of him arriving a few minutes ago. So that tends to keep me front and center with a lot of the drivers, and most of the guys are pretty switched on when it comes to social media. They look through, they want to see what's happening, and I'm sure they're interested in when I post a picture of them. And sometimes I'll get some comments like Lando when I put up this video once about drivers' heights. No, it wasn't a video, it was an Instagram post. He commented, "Factually wrong," exclamation mark. Well, that was the great thing for me, because that was the catalyst to do a video with him going back a couple of years ago where I measured him in Bahrain, and it was a great video. Should have done a lot better, but it was a funny video to do. So yeah, I talk to them. They're not anything special. They're just blokes driving cars. So none of us are. I don't think any of them put themselves on too high a pedestal. Some are quieter than others. Perez and Stroll, just go about their work. Daniel's fun. Lando's great. Oscar's quiet, but has a good sense of humour. Yeah, it's just when you spend this long in the paddock, you get to know people.
Of course, the reference. You know, if we say Formula One Australia, we say Daniel Ricciardo. What are your thoughts a few days after the news of his departure from Formula One, and now after a few days, after we all go back home for a few days, and everybody reflects and has a different perspective after cooling down? What can you tell us about this ending?
It was a very sad way for him to go out, that the team wouldn't announce it, but I think they knew it. Daniel certainly knew it, and that was obvious by his behaviour. The team gave him a little guard of honour as he came back. He was hugging people. You don't do that if you might be back. So clearly, to me, he knew he was going. And I just felt it was very sad that we didn't get a chance to say goodbye, because we thought he was going, but you're never 100% sure. And I think he too would have been pretty dark about the whole situation. I think it was very poorly played by the team, and I don't know why. I can't wait to get back there in Austin and speak to a few people and say what went on. Whether or not they'll tell me, different matter.
Did you speak to Daniel in these days? Did you speak with him during Singapore weekend?
Oh, no, just at the end. At the end when I gave him a hug, because everyone else was giving him a hug. I didn't say, "Are you leaving? Is this your last day?" That wasn't the right time to be doing that. I just captured the images and thought I'd got something that was quite rare, and turns out it was rare. It was the last time he exited the paddock as an F1 driver, and there was only my son, me, and two other photographers, and they weren't even from agencies. They were from a corporate client.
What kind of a legacy do you think Daniel is leaving in Formula One? Because he was very unique as a character, apart from being a fantastic driver, and perhaps his stats do not fully reflect all the talent and all the potential he had for a long time. But he's still somebody that will definitely be really missed in the paddock.
The feedback I've received on my posts about Daniel have been so heartfelt that they can't believe it happened before Austin. That's his favourite race, second favourite race. Although I don't think a team thinks too much about that when they want to dismiss a driver, but certainly loved by most, not everyone. He leaves a big hole in the personality side in F1, because there's really very few drivers in that paddock that could do anything like what he does. He was always pretty happy. Just a genuine guy, got on with everybody. I think it's something that we may not see in the sport again, or if again, perhaps not for a while.
Back in 2012, Daniel came to my country, to Argentina, to do one of these very common exhibitions for Red Bull. And then the top stock car series we have in Argentina was running their season finale. And they brought the Red Bull to the circuit, and he drove it only in the straights because the rest of the track wasn't suitable for it. And the kind of impression we got was simply a guy that enjoys his life. Apart from being a Formula One driver, but a Formula One driver that enjoys his life as nobody else.
Well, yeah, he's got a beautiful property not far from where I'm living, about an hour's drive. He's got a go-kart track on there. He's got BMX tracks. He's got cows. He's got vines. And Lando's been out there last year. I think Lando came before the start of the season. And yeah, he knows how to have fun. He's got houses in Monaco, an apartment in Monaco, and a house in LA. He does a lot. I don't think he's fully focused on the racing. He allows himself some time to get out and have some fun. And why shouldn't he? He's on some pretty good money. You want to enjoy it before you cark it.
Kym, in my country, everybody, there were some people that were very much into Formula One, but there is a huge outburst of Formula One new fans after the arrival of Franco Colapinto. And I would like to ask you, you are one of the first people he met in the paddock as a Formula One driver. There is a lot to talk about him, of course.
Yeah, Franco surprised the hell out of me. I'm trying to think. I might have taken a photo of him prior, when he was in F2. I can't be sure. But obviously when we found out he was coming, I took an interest, and I can't remember I haven't got my computer here. I'll be able to find my first photo. But yeah, I put up a number of posts, and I like it that he comments on them because that just sends the post crazy with people going, "Oh my God, he's commented on your post." So it's good for me, it's good for him. But the thing that I find remarkable is every time I put a post up from him, I get these Argentinian flags, just 150, 200, 300 comments just of these flags. And in fact, I did a post last race where I just put a whole lot of flags. And if you go back to my Instagram page, you can find it. And my son actually saw it and thought I'd made a mistake, and he corrected it. And I said, no, that's the joke. That every time I put a post up, I get all these flags. So I'll put flags in my caption.
What impression did you get from Franco? Because people in Formula One have been speaking in these 3 races about him as I mean, it would be disrespectful to Daniel Ricciardo to compare him, but that completely relaxed personality and driving fast are a sort of a combination that was seen in Daniel in a different context and in a different career that Daniel has done. Of course, the age is not the same. But did you have any Ricciardo vibes?
Oh, look, I didn't instantly think, oh, Junior Daniel. But look, I've spent some time with him. I did a picture signing. We did 100 prints where he signed them. And I did a video about him because he hadn't settled on his signature at that point. And that was quite a quirky thing because his manager, Jamie, saying, well, you need to decide which signature you're going to go with. It appeared that was the point, that he had to make that decision. And maybe, I know, in 20 years to come, that'll be a very important video. Look, I get he's fun. He smiles for me, maybe because he knows me, but he knows a few photographers. I don't know whether he's given them all the same smile. It's good for my images. Look, he just seems to be in the right place at the right time. The media loves him at the moment. Whether that changes, who knows? Good fun kid. And I think he's doing everything he can now to maximize the chance of him getting a drive. So he's working the media, spending a lot of time with them in the TV press pen after sessions. He's doing all the right things.
It's funny what you mentioned about the signatures, because there is something really. Argentina has really crazy fans. I don't know if it's something that might happen with fans from other countries, but something that has turned very popular here after Lionel Messi did with a fan is to have the driver, please, can you sign whatever, my arm? And that fan after that goes to any tattoo studio and gets the signature tattooed. Yep. 3 or 4 fans from Argentina did that, and it turned out that all the signatures were different, and they all know that it was Franco signing their arms.
Is that right? Well, look, I see that a lot with people at F1. A couple of girls have shown me their Seb tattoos, and then a week later, their Seb signatures, and then a week later the tattoo. So look, I know it goes on. He's very popular at the track. Singapore was great because you could stand out the front of the swipe gates and there were about 200 fans, and you could tell when a driver comes in because they'd all scream. Differing levels, Lewis and Charles and whatever the top drivers get the biggest screams, and there'd be a list of, a decreasing level of excitement amongst them. But yeah, Franco was very popular, and he stopped and appeased most of them every day. And I think when you're young and this is all new, this is very exciting, and you would tend to do that. Obviously, if you're Lewis and you've been there for X number of years, that tends to dull a bit, and you want to just get into the track and do your business. So he doesn't tend to spend as much time as some of the younger boys. In Monza, Italy is a country that has a very large community of Argentinians, and we are a very large country, so it's not common that the Argentinians fly from one place to another. But being in Europe, in a very short flights, in Argentina you do a few provinces, and in Europe you jump 2 or 3 countries. So loads of Argentinian residents in Europe have gone to Monza, or with a very short notice, because Franco was announced just 4 days prior to the Grand Prix, and it was a massive community of fans. Have you seen that on the paddock? I'm just aware that a lot of them might have gone to Brazil or planned to, but then I was told that the Brazilian race is sold out.
Yeah, it is sold out. Every year there is a group of Argentinian fans that love Formula One, and they afford the journey to Brazil. But having a driver now, it will be completely crazy. And after what we've seen in the World Cup, our country won the World Cup, and 5 million people were in the streets 2 days later. So we don't know what can happen in Brazil. But the fans have been really, really crazy. And climbing the fences is something that is rarely seen. It looks like a football stadium.
Well, maybe if Franco wins in Brazil, they'll celebrate in your country in the streets. Or anyway, so look, he's unlikely to win a race, I guess, at this early stage. And just going back to those signed prints, I would have loved to have sold them into Argentina, but the privacy laws in Australia are ridiculous because we need to get passport details to send stuff to your country. The Australian government put all these crazy rules in place, and it would cost me way too much money to have all these stupid systems in place. So unfortunately, I'm not being able to sell these prints into the country that probably most wants them. So my apologies, but if you live outside, you can get them at kymillman.com.
I'm sure loads of fans will catch up with you in Brazil. You've gone very popular, and just to wrap up this interview, you've gone very popular in social media. I'm sure that if you walk in the paddock or you are leaving the media center or wherever in the circuit, people recognize you.
Oh yeah, and that's YouTube. YouTube does wonders for your image and brand. And so, some of my followers will watch all 4 or 5 videos a week. So they'll sit and mainly listen to me because I tend not to be on the screen that much. I put the photos up. But yeah, some of them will sit and invest 40 or 50 minutes of their week watching my videos, which I'm thankful for. And that obviously helps with a whole lot of stuff. And I'm talking from brand deals with YouTube through to driver access. Just it's amazing what happens in this sport when you put as much effort as I have into it. And quite frankly, if this wasn't resulting in this sort of exposure, I'd be very disappointed because it's a non-stop grind. And I don't think too many people would want to do what I do.
My last question, Kym. I'm sure nobody ever asked you this before.
Ah, por cierto, estaba siendo sarcástico.
But of course, if I said which was your best picture ever, it would be really difficult to answer. But do you have a sort of a top 3 of your best pictures?
Look, the one, when people ask, the one that comes to mind, it may not be my best picture, but it instantly comes to mind, is Daniel Ricciardo coming onto the grid in Hockenheim, purely because when you see the photo, the car is coming directly towards me. It's wet, so you see the spray coming off its tyres. You know the car's moving. You see Max Verstappen. It's Daniel Ricciardo, by the way, coming onto the grid. Max is on the left-hand side of the shot, back further and slightly out of focus. And then you've got a crowd in the grandstand at the last corner visible. So and I'm actually standing on the track, and people can't get their heads around, how can you be on the track in front of a moving car? Well, it's coming onto the grid, so the car is decelerating and at some point will stop before it hits me. So those 4 or 5 factors are unlikely to ever happen again for me. So that's a pretty rare photograph. Other photos, I took one the other night, which was nice, which is a shot in Singapore, which you take at a bus stop. I didn't take it the first time. Somebody else took it several years ago, and it's a commonly shot. But there's a reflective coating on the underside of this bus stop ceiling. And so when you put your camera in the right spot and pan, the fence tends to be blurred, but the car's sharp, and then you get a reflection on the top. That's a hard photo to take, and it's the first time I've ever taken it like that. Oh, but there must be... Oh, you know what? There's another one, and it's not a car photo. It's the panorama shot in Monza. I decided at the end of the race, I would take 7 shots, I think 7 or 8, and you take them left, middle, right, and then you stitch them all together. And I've got it available as like a 3-meter wide print. It's about 1 meter high. And it's phenomenal for its detail because there would be 20,000 people on the track. You can see every one of their faces. And it's clear enough that everyone's face is discernible. And it's quite a remarkable photo. And once again, you have to have a lot to go right. You have to get the spot, and that's up in the Paddock Club. So very few people have access to that. And you've got to make sure that you get all your photos beautifully done so that you can stitch them together. And then it's a whole lot of work for an editor.
Kym, it's been wonderful to talk with you. I want to thank you a lot for joining for the interview. I've never been as a journalist to a Formula 1 Grand Prix, but I'm really hopeful that it will be sooner than later. And, well, thanks a lot. We hope you enjoyed the chat as much as we did. And, well, we'll meet someday in the paddock.
Muchas gracias, señor. Adios.